Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Smack! The Su clan's patriarch, Su Bo Yuz, face sank and his palm crashed downwards onto the armrest of his seat, causing it to be forcefully smashed into pieces. In terms of natural talent in the martial Dao, Su Tong surpassed him at the same age. As far as he was concerned, under the lead of Su Tong, the Su clan would surely reach even greater glories in the future. However, now everything was destroyed by the hands of an ignorant child. Patriarch, that Duanling Tian attacked too viciously. We can't let this matter go like this. Yeah, if he isn't punished, how would we uphold the face of our Su clan? He must be punished severely. All the Su clan elders were filled with righteous indignation and were incomparably enraged. Grand Elder, I'll leave this matter for you to handle. The Su clan will support you with its entire strength. Su Bo Yuz's gaze descended onto Su Nan, as he was clear in his heart that Su Nan was the most enraged among the people present. Su Tong was Su Nan's own grandson after all. Thank you, Patriarch. Su Nan was slightly excited when he heard what Su Bo Yuz said, and his eyes emitted a vicious luster that seemed as if it could swallow someone whole. As far as he was concerned, no matter who it was, at the moment his grandson's dantian was crippled, that person had stepped past the gates of hell. He wouldn't pay attention to the reasons within, and he didn't care if it was his grandson who provoked the matter or not. All he knew was that what he had to do was burn the bones and scatter the ashes of the person who crippled his grandson. Paladin Academy. On a large tree on a side of the martial arts practice grounds, 9 dragons wore sovereign technique, raging python form. Duanling Tian cultivated for the entire afternoon, and only when dusk approached did he notice his cultivation bottleneck loosen up slightly. If nothing unexpected happens, then I'll probably be able to break through within this month. Duanling Tian's eyes flickered and a trace of a smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. The current him was finally able to increase his cultivation to his heart's content like a normal core formation martial artist. As for the tempering of the fleshly body for the raging python form, it was handed to the dragon blood pill to complete. A single dragon blood pill was sufficient to allow his fleshly body to instantly completely its tempering with origin energy. Duanling Tian, who was in high spirits, jumped off the large tree and watched Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun spar with the other students for a while before leaving Paladin Academy with the two. Duanling Tian, take care. Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun had serious expressions as they reminded Duanling Tian. After all, Duanling Tian was now facing the entire Su clan, which was a colossus that couldn't be taken lightly. Don't worry. Duanling Tian nodded, and a warm feeling ran through his heart. Duanling Tian suddenly stopped dead in his tracks after leaving Paladin Academy and parting ways with Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun. At this moment, he could feel the restlessness of the 2 little pythons that were concealed within his sleeve, and it caused his face to sink unconsciously. He became vigilant. The Su clan members had moved so quickly? Duanling Tian's body moved after taking a deep breath. As if transforming into a bolt of lightning, he quickly concealed himself in the deserted alley that he killed the 2 Duan clan 9th level origin core martial artists the other day. Duanling Tian had only just taken 2 steps. Whoosh, whoosh. Accompanied by 2 strong gusts of wind, 2 aged figures surrounded Duanling Tian from the front and back, causing him to have nowhere to run. These were 2 old men over the age of 70, but their eyes were even more spirited than a youth's. They flickered with a breathtaking bright light. It was obvious that their cultivation levels weren't low. At the first moment, Duanling Tian relied upon the memories of Rebirth Martial Emperor and his own formidable spiritual force to roughly deduce the cultivation levels of the 2. The cultivation levels of these 2 old men should probably be at the 4th to the 6th level of the nascent soul stage. In terms of strength, they were far from the 3rd prince's estate manager, Husan, that Duanling Tian killed last night. The Su clan looks down on me in such a way? They think the 2 of you are sufficient to kill me? Duanling Tian's eyebrows rose and a trace of a sneer appeared on the corners of his mouth. Su clan? The 2 old men were obviously dazed when they heard what Duanling Tian said. The old man that stood before Duanling Tian looked at Duanling Tian with a calm gaze as he slowly said, Duanling Tian, looks like you've made quite a lot of enemies. However, we aren't members of the Su clan. Not members of the Su clan? Duanling Tian was dazed as he thought this in his heart. Could it be people the fifth prince sent? Or maybe they are people that Duan clan's second master, Duan Rule, sent? Duanling Tian, you killed 2 elders of my Yu clan and 2 outstanding disciples. Today is the day you lose your life. The old man who stood behind Duanling Tian said, with a cold and indifferent voice that was like ice, as if it came from the depths of a thaw hole. Yu clan? Duanling Tian's eyes focused as he came to an understanding. Never had I expected that just to kill me, you two would personally rush over from such a faraway place like Swallow Mountain County's county city. You really make me feel overwhelmed by the unexpected favor. However, aren't you too afraid I might make you two stay in the imperial city forever? Duanling Tian guessed the identity of the 2 old men. As he finished speaking, the corners of his mouth curled into an evil smile. Members of the Swallow Mountain County's county city's Yu clan. This was the clan that Yu Hong and Yu Xiang, who incurred enmity with him at the Iron Blood Army, were from. Bulsh *T. The old man that blocked before Duanling Tian grunted coldly. He didn't speak any more nonsense as his body moved, and he abruptly attacked. Above his head, 600 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form, 4th level of the nascent soul stage. The strength of this old man was much stronger than the Yu clan's grand elder that once intercepted Duanling Tian and tried to kill him. The old man behind Duanling Tian moved right after the one in front. Another 4th level nascent soul martial artist. Little black, little white. I'll leave it up to you, Duanling Tian muttered in a low voice. In the next moment, he abruptly raised his hand. Whoosh, whoosh. A white and a black bolt of lightning flew out at the same time in separate directions from inside his sleeve. Their speed was swift to the limit, causing piercing whistling sounds to explode in the ears of the people present. In the sky, besides the 1,200 ancient mammoth silhouettes drawn upon by the 2 old men, 1,200 more ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared out of thin air. A herd of mammoths danced wildly. The 2 old men, whose imposing manner shot through the sky as they flashed towards Duanling Tian, never could have imagined that Duanling Tian would actually have such a trump card on hand. Their eyes emitted a strand of dread when they saw 2 fierce beasts with cultivations not one bit inferior to theirs flashing over towards them. Right at this moment, their minds were in turmoil. Poochie, Poochie. A bloody hole instantly opened up in each of their chests, and their eyes that were originally buoyant with spirit dimmed down. Bang, bang. 2 corpses crashed onto the ground, dying with everlasting regret. If they knew beforehand that Duanling Tian had 2 fierce beasts guarding him, even if they weren't a match for the 2 little pythons, they wouldn't have been killed so quickly. The surprise attack of the 2 little pythons caused the 2 of them, who were similarly at the 4th level of the nascent soul stage, to have little to no opportunity to defend against it. When they had reacted to it, there was already no chance of them surviving. Little black, little white, not bad. I'll get the kitchen to especially fry 2 bowls of meat for the 2 of you once we get home. Duanling Tian praised the 2 little pythons. The intelligent, small eyes of the 2 little pythons flickered with an excited brilliance when they heard that there would be meat to eat. The Yu clan is like a haunting soul that just doesn't want to leave. Duanling Tian sneered before putting away the 2 little pythons within his sleeve. As far as he was concerned, these 2 Yu clan old fellows had virtually made such a long journey just to give away their lives. Duanling Tian condensed some pill fire after taking the 2 old men's spatial rings and burned their corpses into ash. Only then did he leave as if nothing had happened. Maybe it was because Husan's spatial ring from yesterday gave Duanling Tian such a pleasant surprise, but the few million silver within the 2 Yu clan old men's spatial rings didn't cause any fluctuation in Duanling Tian's mood. However, if there was money to gain easily, then it would be a waste to not take it. Night slowly descended. After dinner, Duanling Tian made true of his promise and asked the kitchen to fry 2 bowls of the 2 little pythons' favorite mouse meat. Of course, it wasn't any ordinary mouse meat, but a third-level core formation fierce beast, the subterranean mouse. Little White, even if it's tasty, don't eat so much. Look at you. You've eaten to the point that you're going to burst, right? A voice pleasant to the ear mixed with a trace of reproof sounded. It was the voice of Ku-Er as she lightly rubbed the little white python's bulging stomach. The two little pythons lied on the table with their stomachs protruding out. They were unable to move for a very long time. Duan Lingtian and Li Fei were sitting at a side. They couldn't help but burst into laughter when they saw this scene. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian's, Ku-Er's, and Li Fei's gazes descended upon the two little pythons. They noticed that the markings on the bodies of the little pythons were currently flickering with a glow. The golden markings on the little black python and the silver markings on the little white python slowly flickered and became even more dazzling by the moment. In the end, the little black python was completely enveloped in a golden light, and as for the little white python, it was enveloped by a silver light. Swoosh! Suddenly, Duan Ling Tian noticed that strands of brilliant light descended from the skies. "This is lunar force?" Li Fei exclaimed. "So this is the lunar force?" Duan Ling Tian was slightly surprised. He still remembered how the galactic star technique he passed on to Li Fei utilized lunar force and sunbeam force to cultivate. They would be gathered within the body and then condensed into origin energy. However, never had he imagined that the two little pythons were actually capable of drawing upon the lunar force. According to the memories of Rebirth Martial Emperor, only special cultivation methods were capable of drawing upon the lunar force, and the galactic star technique Li Fei cultivated was precisely one of these special cultivation methods. The lunar force poured down as if it were casting a gentle veil upon the night sky. Duan Ling Tian noticed that the lunar force that poured down actually resonated with the silver light in the surface of the little white python's body, and the two joined together. Subsequently, the gold light on the little black python's body was unwilling to fall behind, as it too converged with the silver light on the little white python's body. The three sources of light merged together. After half an hour, the lunar force withdrew itself. The golden light on the little black python and the silver light on the little white python slowly faded away as well. Duan Ling Tian's formidable spiritual force noticed the changes that occurred to the two little pythons at the first possible moment. They seemed to have broken through. Fifth level of the nascent soul stage. Hiss hiss. Hiss hiss. Before long, the two little pythons flipped their bodies around and stood up straight. They flicked their tongues as their gazes descended upon the remaining fried meat before lowering their heads and starting to eat once more. Their stomachs that were bulging to the point that they seemed like they were about to burst had sunk down, as the food they had eaten before had now been completely digested. Duan Ling Tian and the two girls beside him gazed at each other. They didn't know what had just happened. "What type of snake are you two little fellows, actually? So bizarre." Duan Ling Tian laughed bitterly. He vaguely perceived how the origins of these two little pythons weren't simple. From everything they had just revealed, it wasn't impossible for them to even metamorphose into demon beasts in the future. Duan Ling Tian raised his head to gaze upon the night sky, and the dense, starry sky reflected into his eyes. This array of stars should be many planets, right? According to the memories of Rebirth Martial Emperor, Cloud Continent is vast and boundless, and at the end of the lands in every direction is a vast, oceanic expanse, where the size of the ocean is boundless. Rebirth Martial Emperor had once gone out to sea, desiring to seek its end, but eventually he noticed that the boundless ocean seemed to not have any end. In the end, he was worried that he would get lost and didn't go any deeper. A segment of Rebirth Martial Emperor's memories flashed within Duan Ling Tian's mind. In other words, Rebirth Martial Emperor didn't explore deep into this vast world. Maybe the cloud continent I'm currently on, combined together to that boundless ocean, is a planet as well. Duan Ling Tian guessed within his heart. At this moment, he made a great aspiration within his heart. In the future, if he is able to stand at the peak of Cloud Continent, then he will definitely bring along his family and go out to sea to explore this vast world. He wanted to see if this place was a planet or not. According to his estimations, if it was a planet, then it was definitely a planet countless times larger than Earth. The speed of Rebirth Martial Emperor at his peak was countless times faster than the planes on Earth in his previous life. And with Rebirth Martial Emperor's speed, if he were to be put on Earth, then he would be able to circle around the entire planet in the blink of an eye. If this piece of land below my feet is really a planet, Duan Ling Tian's gaze looked at the array of stars in the horizon, and he thought in his heart, then which planet is Earth? Earth was his home, and there were too many of his memories there. If he had the chance to return, then he would surely take it. Not for any other reason but to burn the bones and shatter the ashes of that broker who set him up. Although, he still needed to thank that broker to a certain extent, as the broker gave a much more wonderful life. But the two matters can't be considered together. Some scores still had to be settled. "Young master, what are you thinking of?" Ku'er's pleasing voice sounded, causing Duan Ling Tian to return to his senses before lightly smiling. "I was thinking of whether other humans like us exist on those stars." "Young master, how could you think like this? If there were people on those stars, then they would have surely fallen down long ago." Ku'er gazed upon the array of stars in the night sky, and her beautiful eyebrows knitted as she spoke with an innocent and pure expression. The corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth twitched. Could he say it? Could it be that he would need to explain what gravitational attraction was to Ku'er? Meanwhile, Li Fei looked up into the array of stars in the night sky as well. Her clear eyes focused, and she was absorbed in thought. Duan Ling Tian and his two fiancés were admiring the moon and gazing at the stars, whereas outside the gate of the Su clan estate, two figures walked swiftly in single file to enter the estate. The figure in the front was a young man around the age of 22 or 23, and the figure in the back was a young man around the age of 20 who was wearing red clothes and had a frosty expression. There was a sheathed sword within his arms, and his pair of cold eyes flickered with a trace of a strange light. After a short moment, "Grand Elder, Su Li is here." Before a vast courtyard, the young man who was leading the way respectfully spoke. "Let him in." An aged voice sounded out from within. The frosty young man who wore red clothes and held a sword in his arms was precisely Su Li. Su Li's eyes flashed with a complicated sheen, and he eventually walked into the courtyard with large strides. Within the vast courtyard, an aged figure stood there still as a mountain, and the figure's pair of eyes that emitted a bright light descended onto Su Li. Su Li stood there after entering and didn't speak a single word. "Is your father well?" The Su clan's grand elder, Su Nan's, gaze descended onto Su Li as he slowly asked. "Not bad. He eats well and sleeps well," Su Li said indifferently, as if he was unwilling to converse further with Su Nan. "You brought me here. If there's something you want to say, then speak frankly." Su Nan took his time as he spoke. "I still remember that your father was a sword cultivator, and his shadowless sword was something that rarely met a match amongst his peers in our Su clan. Unfortunately, he was too arrogant and actually challenged Duan Rufeng, who was flourishing within the Duan clan at the time. In the end, not only did his sword snap, he even suffered a body full of internal injuries that were difficult to heal, and it was difficult for him to utilize the origin energy within his body ever again. I heard that you have a good relationship with Duan Ling Tian, the son of Duan Rufeng, and are even friends? What? The son of the enemy that put your father into such a miserable state. You don't hate him in the slightest?" As he spoke up to this point, Su Nan's gaze sharpened as if it could penetrate everything. "Why would I hate him?" Su Li asked indifferently and with a calm tone. "If you called me here just to drive a wedge between us, then you've wasted your time." Even though his father was defeated at the hands of Duan Ling Tian and suffered a body full of internal injuries, his father had never once hated Duan Rufeng, even to the extent that his father would feel heartfelt respect whenever he mentioned Duan Rufeng. Even though they were far away from the imperial city, when his father found out of Duan Rufeng's disappearance that year, his father felt a sense of loss for a period of time. At that time, although he was still young, he was still able to remember it clearly. He, who was influenced by his father since a young age, would naturally not hate Duan Rufeng. Moreover, the reason his father left the Su clan and left the imperial city that year wasn't at all because of the group of vile people in the Su clan. If he were to talk about hatred, then he hated the Su clan much more. Humph, you really are like your father, ignorant. Su Nan's face sank. If there's nothing else, then I'll be taking my leave. Su Li's gaze focused as a cold light flashed within, and the hand which held on to his sword tightened. The person he admired the most in his life was his father, and he wouldn't tolerate others' disrespect. Since it's come to this, then I'll be frank. Take this thing first. Su Nan raised his hand and threw a small jade bottle to Su Li. Su Li frowned, as he was able to discern that this was a pill bottle. However, he didn't think that Su Nan would be kind and gift a medicinal pill to him. This is an origin freezing pill. Su Nan slowly spoke. Su Li's face went grim, as he naturally knew what an origin freezing pill was. Although it couldn't be considered a poisonous pill, if it were to be consumed by a martial artist below the origin core stage, then the origin energy within that martial artist's entire body would be suppressed, and that martial artist wouldn't be able to utilize his origin energy for 10 hours. Even if the person only consumed a tiny bit, their origin energy would still be suppressed for at least half an hour. In this instant, Su Li understood Su Nan's intentions. You want me to give Duan Ling Tian this origin freezing pill? You're extremely intelligent. Su Nan's gaze flashed as he spoke slowly. I know you think of him as a friend, so I won't force you. You don't have to personally kill him. You only need to make him consume the origin freezing pill during his meal. It's fine even if it's only a shred. At that time, our Su clan disciples at Paladin Academy will take care of it personally. Do you think it's possible? Su Li sneered. He raised his hand, planning to toss away the pill bottle. Su Nan's face sank as he coldly said, If you toss away this origin freezing pill, then there'll be no room for turning back. What? Threatening me? Do you think that I, Su Li, am the type of person that would harm my friends to save my own life? Su Li laughed in disdain. He would rather die than sell out his friends, not to mention harm the lives of his friends. Su Nan's gaze focused as he slowly spoke. Not bad. You're exactly the same as your father all those years ago. However, you don't have a choice. Our Su clan has long ago found out about you and your parents' home in Flowing Wind City's Martial Tomb Town. I'll give you 2 days. If you don't give Duan Ling Tian that origin freezing pill within 2 days, then I'll send people riding Fergana horses to the Martial Tomb Town and take your parents' lives. Su Li's face went pale. Although his father's cultivation wasn't low, due to the hidden injuries within his body, he was unable to utilize his origin energy. His mother is only an ordinary wife, so her cultivation was even inferior to Su Li's. Despicable. Never had Su Li imagined that the Su clan's grand elder would actually be so despicable that he would use the lives of Su Li's parents to threaten Su Li. The lives of your parents are in your hands. You should look out for yourself. Su Nan lightly smiled as if Su Li was within his grasp before waving his hand to ask Su Li to leave. Su Li took a deep breath, and his gaze flickered as he sunk into a fight with his own morality. In the end, he still held onto the pill bottle within his hand and left the Su clan estate. At dawn the next day, after breakfast, Duan Ling Tian brought along the 2 little pythons and arrived at Paladin Academy as usual. The matter which occurred yesterday was obviously suppressed intentionally by Paladin Academy, so news of it didn't spread. The group of Star Mastermind Department students in the classroom didn't size Duan Ling Tian up with strange gazes. The entire morning passed in peace. At noon, Duan Ling Tian's group once again gathered for a meal in the cafeteria. Su Li, why's your expression so unsightly? Duan Ling Tian noticed that Su Li's expression was slightly unnatural and couldn't help himself from asking. I wonder what happened to this fellow. He's had this sour face since early in the morning. Tian, who shook his head. It's nothing. Under Xiao Sun and Xiao Yu's concerned gazes, Su Li shook his head. Before long, the food was served, and with it was a jug of wine. It feels so gratifying every time I think about what happened yesterday. Let's have a proper toast to it. Tian, who smiled as he extended his hand to pick up the wine jug. Slap. Su Li raised his hand and hit away Tian, whose hand, and grabbed onto the wine jug before him. The sun is rising from the west if you're actually taking the initiative to pour wine for us. Tian, who had a face full of disbelief. If it wasn't for all of you arriving on time yesterday, my entire cultivation would have been crippled by that Su Tong. Su Li murmured. What are you talking about? We're all friends. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled. Su Li, when did you become so sentimental? Come, hurry up and pour the wine. At a table not far away, two young men sat together. Looks like Su Li is about to make his move. Humph. He still said that they're friends, but isn't he selling him out all the same? Even till death, that Duan Ling Tian probably wouldn't have imagined that his good friend would drug him. The two young men used a voice only the two of them could hear as they whispered to each other. However, after we've dealt with that Duan Ling Tian, we'll have to leave Paladin Academy as well. So be it. The reward that the Grand Elder promised us is sufficient for us to live out the rest of our live without worry. They've drank the wine Su Li poured. The eyes of the two young men abruptly shone. Slap. Just at this moment, they saw the wine cup within Su Li's hand slip and fall to the ground before shattering. Su Li, this fellow, why were you so careless? Tian, who shook his head with a smile. Right at this moment, Duan Ling Tian's face went grim, as his formidable spiritual force vaguely felt a trace of danger. Xiao Yu, who was sitting opposite of Duan Ling Tian, seemed to have seen something. His pupils constricted and his face went grim as he shouted explosively, Duan Ling Tian, be careful. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 3-foot-long blades that glimmered with a cold light originated from the hands of two unfamiliar young men. They whistled out, flashing straight towards Duan Ling Tian. Fierce sword lights brought about piercing whistling sounds in the air as they flashed towards Duan Ling Tian's back. Above the two young men, 12 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. 2 9th-stage core formation martial artists. Presumptuous. Right at this moment, an aged voice that contained rampaging rage echoed out from the cafeteria's pavilion. A surge of wind could be vaguely noticed on the stairs leading down from the pavilion. An aged figure flashed down swiftly, but unfortunately, it was obvious that he wouldn't make it. The swords in the hands of the two young men had already arrived before Duan Ling Tian and looked like they were about to pierce through Duan Ling Tian's back and come out the other side. The faces of Xiao Yu, Xiao Sun, and Tian who all went grim, but their cultivations were far from the two people who had abruptly attacked to kill Duan Ling Tian, so they were utterly incapable of helping Duan Ling Tian in time. When they had only just stood up, the swords of the two young men had already reached Duan Ling Tian's back. In the nick of time, Duan Ling Tian made his move. Origin energy exploded out from beneath his feet, and 12 ancient mammoth silhouettes abruptly condensed into form above him. Spirit Serpent Movement Technique. Duan Ling Tian's body moved at an extremely tricky angle, barely dodging the two swords that flashed over swiftly. Not only that, his leg trembled and his entire body seemed to transform into a spirit serpent, and he stuck closely to the two young men that attacked him as he flashed behind them. You're courting death. Duan Ling Tian's gaze went cold. He raised his hand, and a violet sword light flashed out. 15 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above Duan Ling Tian. Sword drawing arts. Merely a single sword strike brought about 2 strands of dazzling fresh blood, and the two young men that approached in full fury flew out with their eyes wide open as they fiercely collided with the wall. In the short moment before death, their gazes didn't look at Duan Ling Tian, but instead descended upon Su Li. You. After one of the young men took his last breath, the other young man struggled to raise his hand. He wanted to point at Su Li with a face full of fury, but unfortunately, his hand hadn't even been raised when he took his last breath. Dead. Before they died, the two young men only had one last thought within their minds. They'd been cheated. Cheated by Su Li. This Su Li, not only did he not drug them, but he even shattered the wine cup and gave them the secret signal, causing them to think that Su Li had already succeeded, and thus they impatiently wanted to kill Duan Ling Tian. As far as they were concerned, Duan Ling Tian was drugged and unable to utilize his origin energy. Wasn't killing Duan Ling Tian an easy job for them? But who would have known that Duan Ling Tian wasn't drugged at all? Duan Ling Tian's gaze descended onto the two corpses on the ground, and his phase was extremely unsightly. These two people were obviously higher grade students of Paladin Academy. Who the heck had sent them to kill him? As a student of Paladin Academy, if you dare kill someone within the academy, it was akin to giving up your future, because Paladin Academy would expel you. People the third prince sent? Or was it the fifth prince? Or maybe it's the Duan clan's second master, Duan Roulé, and also that Su clan? Vice Dean. Meanwhile, under the respectful greetings of the crowd of students, the gray-robed old man that flashed down from the cafeteria pavilion earlier had already walked over. The old man's expression was extremely unsightly. There were actually students that dared to strike a killing blow towards another student within Paladin Academy. Luckily, the person that was attacked was fine. Otherwise, Paladin Academy would suffer a huge loss of face. Vice Dean Duanling Tian greeted the old man, and his expression slightly eased up a little bit. The Academy will give you an explanation regarding this matter. The old man had a serious expression as he slowly spoke. Duanling Tian slowly nodded as streams of light flashed within his head. What he wanted to know the most right now was who the heck sent these two people. Subsequently, the old man walked over to the two corpses and flipped through their student badges. Then his face sank. They're grade 4 students. Does anyone recognize them? Followed by the old man's words, the crowd of people moved to surround them before starting to point fingers. Isn't this our class Su Ping and Su Ji? It really is them. They seem to be members of the Su clan, right? But why would they want to kill Duanling Tian? Two madmen, actually daring to strike a killing blow within the academy. In next to no time, there were people who recognized the two young men that were killed by Duanling Tian. Su clan? Duanling Tian's gaze focused as an awe-inspiring killing intent arose within him. However, he was slightly curious. Why would the Su clan only send 2 9th-level core formation martial artists to kill him? This was almost no different from suicide. No matter what, boundless rage still rose within his heart. He'd taken note of this debt. The Su clan? The old man's face sank when he heard the discussion of the group of students. Good. What a good Su clan. He had received reports of the conflict between Duanling Tian and the Su clan from the two academy teachers yesterday, and thus he didn't feel this to be unexpected. However, the fact that members of the Su clan had actually dared to strike a killing blow within the academy had undoubtedly touched his bottom line. This time the vice dean is really angry. The Su clan is probably going to have a hard time. The hearts of some of the youth that were spectating trembled as they vaguely guessed. Duanling Tian, are you all right? Meanwhile, Xiao Yu and the others arrived beside Duanling Tian with faces full of concern. I'm fine. Duanling Tian shook his head. It's only 2 9th-level core formation martial artists. They're not enough to kill me. Not to mention only 2 9th-level core formation martial artists. As long as the martial artists that surprise attacked him weren't of the 7th-level nascent soul stage or above, they would undoubtedly die. Earlier, if it wasn't for him suppressing the 2 little pythons that were concealed within his sleeve and preventing them from attacking, those 2 Su clan members wouldn't even have the opportunity to get close to him. The 2 little pythons were his trump card. If it wasn't necessary, he wouldn't easily reveal their existence. Are there any Su clan members amongst you? The old man's gaze swept past the spectating crowd. Instantly, a small amount of people's faces went pale, but they still summoned up some courage and stood out. All of you, bring along the corpses of your clan members and follow me to the Su clan. The old man walked forward in large strides and left the cafeteria. His tone contained strands of suppressed rage mixed within. Duanling Tian's group sat down and continued their meal. What happened earlier was just a farce to them. When they were nearly finished eating, Duanling Tian noticed that Su Li seemed to be hesitating to speak. He couldn't help but laugh and say, Su Li, if you have something to say, then be frank about it. We aren't outsiders. Xiao Yu, Xiao Sun, and Tian who also noticed that something was wrong with Su Li. I want to borrow 1 million silver from you guys. Su Li eventually spoke and went silent after he finished. 1 million silver? Tian, whose eyes went wide open the moment Su Li spoke. Only Duanling Tian, Xiao Sun. and Xiao Yu didn't have any huge reaction and were only slightly surprised about why Su Li would suddenly wanted so much money. However, they didn't ask. I have 200,000 silver on me. Xiao Yu was the first to speak. I have 300,000 silver. Su Li, if you aren't in a rush, I'll go gather the money when I return home tonight and give it to you tomorrow, Xiao Sun said. Slap. Duan Ling Tian didn't speak as he extended his hand into his pocket. He then raised his hand and slapped a stack of silver bills before Su Li. Precisely 1 million silver. F***K. Duan Ling Tian, you're so rich. Tian, who fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva and glanced at Duan Ling Tian with an astonished gaze. Xiao Yu's and Xiao Sun's gazes descended upon Duan Ling Tian. They were able to produce 1 million silver as well, but they wouldn't keep so much money on hand all the time. Duan Ling Tian, where'd you get so much money from? Xiao Yu had a face full of amazement. He was the grandson of the Xiao clan's supreme elder, so it wasn't strange if he produced a few million silver casually. But Duan Ling Tian was only a branch family disciple of the Li clan, and he was even a disciple with another surname. The patriarch gave me 2 million silver when I left Aurora City, Duan Ling Tian casually said. Looks like that Li clan's patriarch looks at your future extremely favorably. Otherwise, he wouldn't have put down such a large investment. Xiao Yu shook his head with a smile. However, he's made the right bet. He was confident that with Duan Ling Tian's strength and natural talent, the Li clan's investment would surely bring about huge returns. Thank you. Su Li glanced at Duan Ling Tian gratefully before putting away the silver. We're all friends. What are you being so courteous for? Duan Ling Tian made nothing of it, as the current him possessed a vast sum of a few tens of millions worth of silver. A mere 1 million silver was something he didn't really mind anymore. He didn't plan on asking Su Li to return the money. As a friend, was far more important than money to him. He, however, didn't notice that a strand of a strange light flickered deep within Su Li's eyes. The Su clan estate. Within a vast courtyard, a young man with a ghastly pale expression sat at a side with eyes that contained crimson color within. Grandfather, do you really have a way to make that Duan Ling Tian die? The young man took a deep breath. Extreme hatred was mixed within his voice. This young man was precisely Su Tong, who had his Dantian crippled by Duan Ling Tian. The original number 1 genius of the younger generation of the Su clan, in existence at the 3rd level of the origin core stage, had now become a cripple, and his entire strength merely remained at the 9th level of the body tempering stage. Tong, don't worry. That Duan Ling Tian will certainly die by tomorrow. The Su clan's grand elder Su Nan, who stood at the side, spoke slowly with a voice filled with confidence. Grand elder, are you sure that Duan Ling Tian will certainly die? Right at this moment, a cold and indifferent voice sounded from outside the courtyard, and within the voice was a vague trace of fury mixed within. Patriarch. Su Nan hurriedly bowed when he saw the person who had arrived, and Su Tong, who was at the side, followed suit and bowed as well. Grand Elder, shouldn't you give me a good explanation on some matters? Patriarch Su Boya had a dignified expression mixed with a trace of rage, and his eyes stared fixedly at the old man. Patriarch, what do you mean? A bad premonition arose within Su Nan's heart, as he understood the patriarch and thus knew that the patriarch wouldn't be so enraged over some small matter. Paladin Academy's Zhan Xiong just left our Su clan. Su Boya's face was extremely unsightly as he said, in a low voice, Grand Elder, I left this matter to you because I trusted you would be able to deal with it properly and because Su Tong is your grandson. But what you did this time did indeed lack consideration, and not only were you unable to kill Duan Ling Tian, you even brought great trouble for our Su clan. Su Nan reacted after hearing what Su Boya said, and his face went pale. Could it be that the plan had failed? Patriarch, what actually happened? Su Nan's breathing became hurried. Just a while ago, Paladin Academy's Vice Dean Zhan sent over the corpses of Su Ping and Su Ji. Su Boya took a deep breath. Su Ping? Su Ji? Su Nan's face went grim. Patriarch, Su Ping and Su Ji are dead? Su Ping and Su Ji were precisely the 2 pawns within his plan. Pawns that would cooperate with Su Li to slaughter Duan Ling Tian. Exactly. Not only are they dead, but they were even killed by that Duan Ling Tian. Su Boya said, in a low voice. It would have been fine if they had succeeded and killed Duan Ling Tian. Paladin Academy would expel them at most, and it would have no effect on our Su clan. But not only did they not kill Duan Ling Tian, they were even killed by Duan Ling Tian. Now, in order to give Duan Ling Tian an explanation, the Paladin Academy's Vice Dean Zhan isn't willing to let the matter go. Do you know that just for this matter, that Vice Dean Zhan reduced our Su clan's yearly recommendation quota to Paladin Academy from 5 to 3? As Su Boya finished speaking, the rage on his face grew stronger. In the past, 5 places weren't even enough for the group of Su clan higher-ups to divide amongst themselves. Now that it had been reduced to 3, he could imagine the expressions on the faces of those higher-ups once they found out about everything. Su Nan's body trembled and his face went ghastly pale when he heard this. He really went for wool and came home shorn. No. Impossible. It's impossible that they'd attack Duan Ling Tian before Su Li drugged him. Su Nan was unwilling to believe that all this was real. Humph. Su Boya's face sank as he grunted coldly. Then he flicked his sleeve and turning around to leave. Grand Elder, if you're unable to deal with this matter, then feel free to speak up. I'll send someone else to deal with it. After Su Boya left, Su Nan pondered for a long time but was still unable to wrap his head around it. The plan that he considered to be perfect, why would it turn out like this? There was only one possibility, which was Su Li didn't follow the plan and even sold him out. Su Li had joined forces with Duan Ling Tian to cheat and kill the 2 disciples of his Su clan. Right at this moment, Grand Elder, there's a letter here for you. Just at this moment, a humble voice sounded from outside the courtyard, and a Su clan disciple passed a letter to Su Nan. Su Nan received the letter and opened it to take a look. Grand Elder Su Nan, I'm truly sorry. I accidentally let the wine cup slip during lunch at noon today and caused your people to mistake it for the secret signal to slaughter Duan Ling Tian. Signed, Su Li. There was only this short passage of words on the letter, but it angered Su Nan to the point that his body trembled and the lifeblood within his body roiled. Pooh! In the end, Su Nan was forcefully angered to the point that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Su Nan's eyes flickered with a luster of bloodthirst, and his icy cold voice emitted coldness that reached the bone. Su Li, I'll make your entire family be unable to die a natural death. Su Tong, who was not far away, had an extremely unsightly expression. He had perceived that his enemy, Duan Ling Tian, had survived. Paladin Academy. Duan Ling Tian sat cross-legged in cultivation atop a large tree at the side of the martial arts practice ground, and he was fully immersed in a peaceful state. Duan Ling Tian. Suddenly, an anxious voice jolted Duan Ling Tian awake. Duan Ling Tian opened his eyes to notice Tian, who hastily running over from afar. Duan Ling Tian turned over to drop down from the large tree before going to greet Tian Hu. Tian Hu, what happened? Duan Ling Tian, Su Li has left. Tian Hu smiled bitterly. Left? Duan Ling Tian didn't react for a moment. This is the letter Su Li left for you. Only after Tian Hu passed over the letter did Duan Ling Tian's face turn serious. Duan Ling Tian opened the letter. Duan Ling Tian, when you see this letter, I'm probably already riding the Fergana horse I bought with the money you lent me. I'm going to return home. Last night when I left the Su clan estate, I had already made this decision. Even if I, Su Li, have to give up my future, I still wouldn't harm my own friends. I'll be bringing my parents along once I leave home this time. As for where I'm going, I haven't thought of it yet. Maybe I'll leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Forgive me for leaving without saying goodbye, and say goodbye to Xiaoyu and the others for me. Maybe one day in the future we'll meet again. At that time, I'll return the money I owe you. Signed, Su Li. Swoosh. Duan Ling Tian crushed the letter in his hand into a ball. Besides containing these words of farewell, the letter which Su Li wrote him also explained what exactly happened. Su Li left Paladin Academy and gave up his own future. Number 1, for the sake of his parents' safety. Number 2, for the sake of Duan Ling Tian, this friend of his. At this moment, Many of the questions within Duan Ling Tian's heart were unraveled. Why Su Li accidentally slipped and dropped a cup, and why those two Su clan members had attacked him with so much confidence. So it turned out that those two Su clan members thought that Su Li had made him consume an origin freezing pill. Su Li. Duan Ling Tian's heart trembled. Although Su Li was usually quiet and reserved, at this moment, he could feel the friendship of Su Li. For the sake of Duan Ling Tian, this friend of his, Su Li was willing to give up his future. Su Li, I believe in you. We'll surely meet again. Duan Ling Tian took a deep breath, and a trace of anticipation flashed within his eyes. His mood was slightly heavy. Duan Ling Tian, however, didn't know that after parting ways today, his next meeting with Su Li will be many years later. Duan Ling Tian, Su Li left? Meanwhile, Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun walked over. Take a look. Duan Ling Tian sighed and passed over the letter that was crumpled into a ball to Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu opened the letter, and Xiao Sun and Tian who gathered together to read it as well. That Su clan's grand elder, despicable. After he finished reading the letter, Tian whose face went extremely gloomy, and he gnashed his teeth in fury. He and Su Li became friends from battling each other, and they had even entered the Star General Department together. He'd long since taken Su Li as a good friend within his heart, but never had he imagined that Su Li would leave like this. In the future, he wondered if there would be a chance to meet again. After they finished reading the letter, rage appeared in the eyes of Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, and at the same time, it was mixed with a trace of admiration. Su Li gave up the great future before him for the sake of his friend, and thus had left. Such actions were worthy of respect. Duan Ling Tian once again sat atop the large tree and rested himself on the tree trunk. He looked up through the luxurious foliage into the bright, blue sky. Su clan, since you want to play, then I'll accompany you and play nicely. Duan Ling Tian's eyes slowly narrowed, and a cold expression appeared on the corners of his mouth. Su Li's departure caused Duan Ling Tian's mentality to undergo a certain degree of change. The current Duan Ling Tian seemed to have once again become that cold and unfeeling weapons specialist he formerly was. At dusk, outside Paladin Academy, a luxurious carriage was parked at the side of the road. The person who drove the carriage was a white-browed old man with extraordinary bearings, and with a glance anyone would know that he was no simple figure. Duan Ling Tian noticed the carriage as soon as he walked out of Paladin Academy's gate, but he paid no attention to it. He said his farewells to Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun before walking forward by himself. Just when he passed by the side of the carriage, whoosh! A figure that was fast like a bolt of lightning seemed to move like a ghost and blocked in front of Duan Ling Tian. Only now did Duan Ling Tian notice that the person who before his eyes was precisely that white-browed old man who drove the carriage. Duan Ling Tian's face sank. At this moment, he could feel the changes of the two little pythons that were concealed within his sleeve. Relying upon the experiences of Rebirth Martial Emperor and his own spiritual force, he could deduce the old man's cultivation level. This old man was a 7th level nascent soul expert or above. In terms of strength, he was even not inferior to the 3rd prince's manager, Husan. However, this white-browed old man obviously wasn't at the level of being a half-step void stage expert like the Divine Might Marquis. Unless a figure like this were to surprise attack him when he was completely defenseless or not on guard, he was confident in instantly killing the old man by relying on the bone corrosion inscription. You are Duan Ling Tian? The white-browed old man asked in a low voice, as he scrutinized Duan Ling Tian with a condescending gaze. K off. Duan Ling Tian's gaze was ice-cold and his face sank. He had always disdained paying attention to this sort of old fellow who gets self-conceited because of their seniority. The white-browed old man was startled. He obviously had never imagined that Duan Ling Tian would dare have such an attitude towards him. Instantly, a trace of rage appeared on his face, just when he was about to lose his temper. Old boy, don't forget our real motive. A man's voice that didn't have any fluctuations in emotion sounded from within the carriage, causing the white-browed old man to instantly restrain his fury. Duan Ling Tian's brows rose, and he was slightly surprised. It looked like the person inside the carriage wasn't simple. The white-browed old man suppressed his rage and said to Duanling Tian, my liege requests your presence. Sorry, I'm not interested. Duanling Tian shrugged indifferently. Don't move. Right at this moment, a delicate shout echoed out from within the carriage. This time it was the voice of a woman. This voice seemed as if he had heard it somewhere, but Duanling Tian couldn't recall it for a moment. Subsequently, the voice of the woman sounded once more. This time she spoke to the man within the carriage. Cousin, this Duanling Tian doesn't know what's good for him. I think we should just ask old Bai to directly kill him. Subsequently, it was deathly silent within the carriage. It's her. Duanling Tian finally remembered. Wasn't this voice the voice of that Tongli? Then the person who she called cousin. Besides the fifth prince, who could it be? So it's the fifth prince. I've really been impolite. Duanling Tian glanced at the carriage before lightly smiling. If there's nothing else that fifth prince needs, then I'll be leaving. Duanling Tian continued walking forward after he finished speaking. Wait. Right at this moment, the fifth prince's voice that contained no feelings once again sounded. Duanling Tian stopped his steps. He was extremely curious. What the heck did this fifth prince want to do? Kneel down and kowtow 3 times. Then the enmity between you and my cousin will be written off. The fifth prince's voice continued to echo out, a voice that had a tone that allowed no dispute. Kneel, kowtow? Duanling Tian's face went grim and rage arose within his eyes. Cousin, I don't want him to kowtow. I want him dead. Tong Li's icy cold voice subsequently sounded from within the carriage with a tone that seemed as if there was no room for discussion. 2 idiots. Duanling Tian sneered and continued to walk forward. Duanling Tian, if you just walk off like this, then you'll surely regret it. The fifth prince's voice continued to echo out. Sorry, but the word regret doesn't exist in Duanling Tian's dictionary. Duanling Tian's face seemed to have been covered in a layer of ice. He paid absolutely no attention to the fifth prince's threats. There was gold beneath a man's knees, and his knees only bent for the heavens, earth, and his parents. It would be impossible even for the supreme emperor to make him bow and kneel, let alone a mere prince. Presumptuous. The white-browed old man's face went gloomy, and a terrifying aura was emitted from within him as if he wanted to catch up to Duanling Tian and kill him on the spot. Duanling Tian stopped his footsteps. His gaze focused and a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. If this white-browed old man were to attack him, then he'd activate the bone corrosion inscription and annihilate him at the first possible moment. Old Bai, let's go. The fifth prince's voice that vaguely contained a trace of coldness sounded. The white-browed old man caught his breath and suppressed the rage within his heart before driving the carriage and leaving. Within the carriage, Tongli had a face full of displeasure. Cousin, didn't you say you would help me vent my anger? Why did you only ask that Duanling Tian to kneel down earlier? The fifth prince lightly smiled. Cousin, death isn't the worst punishment to some people. When it comes to a person like Duanling Tian, someone who is so unyielding and prideful, making him kneel down and kowtow is much more difficult than making him die. However, it can be said that I gave him a chance today. In the future, even if I really kill him, the Duan clan can't say anything about it. Tongli seemed to come to an understanding and was slightly embarrassed. Cousin, I've misunderstood you. However, didn't that Duanling Tian refuse the Duan clan and doesn't consider himself a Duan clan disciple? Cousin, why are you still worrying about that Duan clan? The fifth prince's eyes focused. Be that as it may, the blood of a Duan clan direct descendant still flows within him. Don't worry, cousin brother will absolutely not let anyone who bullied you go. Just let him live for a few more days. As he finished speaking, a sense of doting appeared on the fifth prince's face. Thank you, cousin. Tong Li's face burst into a smile, and her eyes flickered with a malicious sheen. It was as if she had already seen the scene of Duanling Tian's corpse being torn into pieces by her. On the other side, this fifth prince is practically even more arrogant than that third prince. Duanling Tian's heart went slightly cold as he walked down the road. You better not come offend me. Or else, even if you're a noble descendant of the imperial family, I still won't show mercy. Today, Duan Ling Tian's mood wasn't great originally due to Su Li's departure, so flames of fury vaguely arose within him. Now with the appearance of the fifth prince and Tong Li, and that attitude of looking at him in a condescending manner, it was like putting oil to the fire, causing his fury to increase explosively and be difficult to restrain. Only when he arrived near the divine Might Marquis estate did Duan Ling Tian's expression ease up and a smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. In the entire imperial city, besides his family and his few friends, only the divine Might Marquis estate could warm his heart. Duan Ling Tian arrived before the divine Might Marquis estate's gate, where a young guard soldier took a step forward and fiercely shouted at him, "Halt!" Slap. Before Duan Ling Tian could even speak, another middle-aged soldier ran over and raised his hand to give the young soldier a slap on the back of his head. "Brother Zhang, why'd you hit me?" The young soldier turned around and looked angrily at the middle-aged soldier. The middle-aged soldier paid no attention to the young soldier. He respectfully led Duan Ling Tian into the divine Might Marquis estate. "Young Master Ling Tian, please come in." "You know me?" Duan Ling Tian was slightly surprised. He remembered that this person wasn't amongst the guard soldiers that were present when he came the last time. "Young Master Ling Tian, the other day when Vice General Pang led you into the estate, I just happened to have seen you," the middle-aged soldier said respectfully. He clearly saw how Vice General Pang had a respectful appearance and didn't dare neglect this youth when he led him in the estate the other day. Duan Ling Tian nodded before saying, "You continue with your work. I'll go look for the Marquis myself." Duan Ling Tian entered the divine Might Marquis estate by himself after he finished speaking and moved familiarly within. "Brother Zhang, who is he?" The young soldier rubbed the back of his head, but he wasn't angry, as he had realized that the violet-clothed youth wasn't simple. "Humph, kid, you're really brave from your ignorance. As for who he is, even I am not really sure. All I know is that when he came the last time, it was Vice General Pang that personally led him in. Moreover, when he left, the Marquis and Junior Marquis personally sent him out." The middle-aged soldier had a face full of fear. "Now tell me if I ought to have hit you or not?" The young soldier's face went pale from fright, and then he hurriedly nodded. "Yes, yes." After entering the divine Might Marquis estate, Duan Ling Tian went directly to the audience hall. After the soldiers who guarded the audience hall reported his arrival, Duan Ling Tian once again met the divine Might Marquis, Nie Yuan. "Little Tian." Nie Yuan had a wide grin on his face when he saw Duan Ling Tian. "What? Have you come this time because you need Uncle Nie to help you with something?" Duan Ling Tian lightly smiled. Uncle Nie really predicts things like a prophet. Nie Yuan derided, "Kid, don't give your Uncle Nie that. Let me guess, you probably came because of the matter with the Su clan, right?" "Uncle Nie, you're well informed." Duan Ling Tian's eyes narrowed as he lightly smiled. Students from the Su clan within Paladin Academy tried to assassinate another student, but were instead killed by their target. The Vice Dean was enraged, and he personally went to the Su clan and reduced the Su clan's recommendation quota into Paladin Academy from 5 to 3. "Looks like that Vice Dean Zhan really cares for you." Nie Yuan looked at Duan Ling Tian with a spurious smile. Duan Ling Tian's eyes focused. He knew that the Vice Dean had gone to the Su clan, but he didn't know that the Vice Dean had cut down the recommendation quota to Paladin Academy of the Su clan to 3. For a moment, a sense of gratitude to the old man arose within Duan Ling Tian. "Speak. What did you come to Uncle Nie for?" Nie Yuan glanced at Duan Ling Tian dotingly as he asked. "Uncle Nie, I want the information of all the Su clan's businesses within the Imperial City, including the information of the people in charge of those businesses." Duan Ling Tian proclaimed the reason for his arrival. "You came here for this?" Nie Yuan was slightly surprised. He thought that Duan Ling Tian would want him to come forward and suppress the Su clan spirit, but never had he imagined that Duan Ling Tian would actually come for his. "Yes." Duan Ling Tian nodded. "Nothing else?" Nie Yuan asked. "Nothing." Duan Ling Tian shook his head. He came to the divine Might Marquis estate precisely for this information. As for anything else, he was able to deal with it by himself. All right, come get it 3 days from now. Nye Yuan glanced deeply at Duan Ling Tian and didn't ask any further. Thank you, Uncle Nye. Then I'll be heading home first so my mother doesn't worry, Duan Ling Tian said. Subsequently, Nye Yuan once again personally sent Duan Ling Tian out of the Divine Might Marquis estate, causing that rash soldier that guarded the gate to feel a lingering fear within his heart. Luckily, he hadn't offended that violet-clothed youth earlier. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. At dawn the next day, Duan Ling Tian had only just arrived at the Paladin Academy gate when he couldn't help but frown. The restlessness of the two little pythons and his sensitive spiritual force told him that someone was watching him from the shadows. Humph! Duan Ling Tian stopped his footsteps and glanced far off into the distance with a sneer on the corners of his mouth. He didn't pay any attention to who sent those people, but if they were to dare to appear before him, then he wouldn't mind making them become corpses. Outside of Paladin Academy, in a remote alley, two ramrod-straight figures stood there. He seems to have noticed us. The thin-figured middle-aged man among them had a face full of surprise. Seems so. The other middle-aged man nodded. The thin man was silent for a moment before speaking. I heard he's only at the 9th level of the core formation stage. Logically speaking, it would be impossible for him to notice us. Maybe it's just a coincidence. The other man seemed unsure as he spoke. After Duan Ling Tian walked into Paladin Academy, he noticed that the feeling of being watched had disappeared, so he walked into the classroom for classes as usual. The entire morning passed with Sima Chongfeng's long-winded statements. At noon during their meal, Duan Ling Tian's group was slightly unaccustomed to the lack of Su Li, and they remained silent in tacit understanding. At dusk, after walking out of the Paladin Academy gates and saying his farewells to Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, Duan Ling Tian once again felt someone watching him. Moreover, it wasn't just one person. Seems to be the two people from this morning, Duan Ling Tian thought inwardly as he walked into a remote alley. In this alley, he had lured and killed two batch of people who wanted to kill him in succession. But this time, when he entered the alley and walked slowly, those two people didn't appear for a long time. Who the heck are they? Duan Ling Tian frowned and lost his patience. Humph! Since you aren't taking the initiative, then I'll reverse the positions. Duan Ling Tian's gaze focused and his speed increased. Then he vanished at the end of the alley in the blink of an eye. The two middle-aged men's figures appeared in the alley and swiftly moved forward, but they were unable to catch Duan Ling Tian's trail. Although they were nascent soul martial artists, they weren't inscription masters, and thus their spiritual force wasn't so sensitive. Moreover, they didn't possess the tracking and counter-tracking abilities that Duan Ling Tian developed from his previous lifetime as a mercenary and special forces member. We actually let him escape from under our noses. The thin-figured middle-aged man laughed bitterly. We can confirm that our feeling in the morning was correct, and he indeed noticed us. The other middle-aged man had a serious expression. Is playing hide and seek fun? Right at this moment, a calm voice sounded from behind the two middle-aged men, causing their faces to turn extremely grim. The two middle-aged men felt their scalps go numb and sweated cold sweat out of fear as they slowly turned around. When they gazed upon the violet-clothed youth before them, their faces were filled with disbelief. This youth, when did he get behind them? They actually didn't notice it in the slightest. They both looked at each other and could see the shock within each other's eyes. While the two middle-aged men turned around, Duan Ling Tian was sizing them up as well, and a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Who sent you two? Duan Ling Tian asked in a calm voice as he stared fixedly at the two men. His dignified voice contained a sense of grimness. Whoosh! Instantly, a terrifying bloody intent swept out from Duan Ling Tian's body and enveloped the two men without any restraint. The faces of the two men immediately went pale. It was difficult for them to imagine how a youth that seemed to be around the age of 18 would actually have such a terrifying killing intent. Instantly, an aura of slaughter arose from them as well, and it moved to counter Duan Ling Tian's killing intent. Their two auras of slaughter gathered together, and only then did it barely stop Duan Ling Tian's bloody killing intent. Duan Ling Tian's brows knit as he felt the aura of the two men, and his ice-cold face eased up. Only then did the two men heave sighs of relief and showed faces full of lingering fear. Never in their dreams had they imagined that a little fellow at the 9th level of the core formation stage was actually able to bring such terrifying pressure to them. If it wasn't indeed a youth that stood before them, they would even think that this was a formidable man that had walked out from a terrifying battlefield. Go back and tell the Marquis that I appreciate his good intentions. Duan Ling Tian walked past the two middle-aged men after he finished speaking and directly left. You know who we are? The two middle-aged men were slightly surprised. Humph! Such a strong aura of slaughter forms on the battlefield. Besides army officers who are veterans in battle, how many other people could possess it? Under the focused gazes of the two middle-aged men, Duan Ling Tian's figure slowly disappeared into the distance, but the words that Duan Ling Tian left behind, however, made both their faces flush. Veterans in battle? Before that youth, they really felt ashamed to proclaim themselves as officers who were veterans in battle. Looks like the general has still underestimated this nephew of his. The thin, middle-aged man shook his head with a bitter smile on his face. Since it's come to this, then let's return. Moreover, not mentioning anything else, with just this ability of his, there's only a handful of people in the Su clan who can do anything to him. The other middle-aged man had bitterness within the corners of his mouth as he slowly spoke. Divine Might Marquis Estate. Looking at his two favorite generals who stood before him with faces full of dejection and in low spirits, Divine Might Marquis Nya Yuan's face was full of astonishment. Didn't I ask you two to protect that nephew of mine in secret? Why have you two returned? General, don't joke with us. It's better if you get that nephew of yours to protect us. The thin middle-aged man shook his head. He felt a lingering fear in his heart when he recalled the scene from before. Until now, he still couldn't wrap their heads around how exactly that violet-clothed youth with a cultivation at the 9th level of the core formation stage could arrive behind them without them noticing in the slightest. He could imagine how if the violet-clothed youth was substituted with an enemy that matched his strength, he would undoubtedly die. Even though the other middle-aged man didn't speak, he nodded in deep agreement. What do you mean by this? Nya Yuan frowned with a puzzled expression. The two people before him were both his trusted generals that had swept through all opposition on the battlefield, and they could only be compared to a few people. But now, these two men seemed depressed and listless. It was difficult for him to imagine what exactly happened that would cause his two favorite generals to become like this. Eventually, under the narration of the two men, Nya Yuan found out the ins and outs of the matter. He noticed the tracks of you two at the first possible moment, dodged past your tracking, and when you both were unaware in the slightest, he slipped behind you two? Nya Yuan had a face full of disbelief. Although he knew that this nephew of his was mysterious, never had he imagined it would be to such an extent. Ru Feng, what sort of little freak did you give life to? The corners of Nya Yuan's mouth twitched, and his eyes flashed with the traces of a jealous and envious brilliance. The youth being able to cultivate to the 9th level of the core formation stage at the age of 18 and even becoming a grade 9 alchemist had already caused him to be surprised. But never had he imagined that besides all this, the youth still had such a terrifying ability. Ordinary people might think nothing of the youth's ability in tracking and counter-tracking, but as a figure akin to a god of war in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, a man who'd walked out of the battlefield, he was able to deeply perceive how terrifying such an ability was. If he had such an ability, it would also mean that sneaking into the enemy's camp would be like walking into a deserted place. Even if it was assassinating the enemy camp's grand general, it wouldn't be a difficult task. The appointed day arrived 3 days later as scheduled. Duan Ling Tian once again arrived at the Divine Might Marquis estate. Within the audience hall, the Divine Might Marquis Nya Yuan passed over the stack of information in his hand to Duan Ling Tian. Little Tian, these are the things you wanted. Thank you, Uncle Nya. If there's nothing else, then I'll... After getting the things he needed, Duan Ling Tian was prepared to leave. However, would Nya Yuan let him leave? Wait. Nya Yuan looked at Duan Ling Tian and his eyes narrowed before he lightly smiled. Little Tian, I think we should chat. Chat about what? Duanling Tian had a face full of vigilance, because he noticed that Nye Yuan had a fox-like smile on his face. 2 days ago, didn't you manage to slip behind my 2 favorite generals without them noticing it in the slightest? Nye Yuan looked at Duanling Tian with a burning gaze. Uncle Nye, you want to chat about this? Duanling Tian came to an understanding. He thought it would be something important. I've thought about it, and if this ability of yours is able to be widely utilized within the army, I would surely be able to construct an extremely successful team. I would be able to go deep into the enemy army as if it was a deserted place and take the head of the enemy's commander as if it taking it out of my pocket. When Nye Yuan spoke about armies going to war, his body unconsciously emitted an iron-blooded aura of slaughter. Duanling Tian couldn't help but be surprised. As expected of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's god of war, just this aura of slaughter far surpassed that of the 2 men he encountered 2 days ago. Uncle Nye, you want me to pass on this ability to you? Duanling Tian guessed Nye Yuan's intentions. Exactly. Nye Yuan's eyes shone as he nodded. If you're willing, Uncle Nye can agree to any of your requests. Duanling Tian rolled his eyes at Nye Yuan. Uncle Nye, I removed the poison from Grandfather Nye, so you seem to still owe me a great favor, right? Nye Yuan laughed embarrassedly and rubbed his fists together. He was truly interested in that ability of Duanling Tian's. Uncle Nye. Duanling Tian looked at Nye Yuan with a serious expression. That ability of mine, if you want to learn it, it can't be said to be difficult nor not difficult, neither can it be said to be easy or not easy. But it isn't something that can be learned in a short amount of time. I naturally understand this. Just like how when armies go to battle, it requires experiences accumulated over a long period in order to become an army that's won 1,000 battles. Nye Yuan nodded, as he didn't feel this to be strange at all. Since it's like this, then send 2 people to me, Uncle Nye. I think the 2 men you sent to protect me the other time aren't bad. Ask them to follow me for a period of time, and I'll surely be able to let them completely grasp this ability of mine. The corners of Duanling Tian's mouth curled at an angle as he slowly spoke. Your appetite is really big, kid. Do you know that they're both top generals under my command? Nye Yuan derided. However, they probably wouldn't refuse if I asked them to follow you and learn. Just as Nye Yuan said that, the gazes of the 2 men that Nye Yuan had sent to protect Duanling Tian in secret shone brightly. The moment they heard that Duanling Tian was going to teach them that mysterious ability of tracking and counter-tracking, even their breathing became hurried. They had experienced Duanling Tian's ability and were able to estimate how much they would benefit once they mastered that ability. Nye Yuan's gaze focused as he glanced at Duanling Tian and asked, Little Tian, how long would they need to learn for? What? Uncle Nye's unwilling to part with them? Don't worry, I'll need a year's time at most. After a year, even if they're unable to reach the level I'm at, they will surely be able to master the key points. At that point, they will only need more practice before catching up to me sooner or later. Duanling Tian smiled as he said this with a face full of confidence. 1 year? That isn't too long. Nye Yuan's brows knitted as he nodded. However, Duanling Tian looked at Nye Yuan and hesitated to speak. What? What other requests do you have? Nye Yuan asked. Uncle Nye, during this year, I hope that they can completely become my people and only listen to my orders. Anyone else, including you, has no right to order them. I require complete control over them. Duanling Tian proclaimed his request. If you're unable to do this, then everything we've spoken about earlier can be considered to be cancelled. Nye Yuan lightly frowned, but he eased up before long and shook his head. Never mind, it's up to you. I presume you probably have a sense of limit when you do things. The current Nye Yuan, however, didn't know that this decision of his would become the decision he regretted the most in his entire lifetime. In the days that were to come, he would realize that there was no concept of limits within this nephew of his. Duanling Tian laughed. Deal. Duanling Tian looked at the 2 middle-aged men as he asked, What are your names? The thin and tall middle-aged man didn't dare hesitate. Young Master Ling Tian, I'm Zhang Qian. The other man of middle stature respectfully said, "Young Master Ling Tian, I'm Zhao Gang. In the future, you two can directly call me Young Master," Duan Ling Tian said indifferently. "Yes, Young Master." Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang hurriedly replied with extreme respect. Although the cultivation of the youth before them was nothing in their eyes, the youth's abilities in other areas caused them to have heartfelt admiration. "Uncle Nya, I'll be taking them and leaving." Although it was only for a year, obtaining 2 brave generals at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage for nothing still caused Duan Ling Tian to be extremely delighted. This time, Nye Yuan didn't escort Duan Ling Tian out. He was really worried he would regret it. He had a feeling that this nephew of his was no ordinary person. "I hope he doesn't cause any trouble." A bitter smile appeared on Nye Yuan's face. After walking out of the Divine Might Marquis estate, Duan Ling Tian looked at Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. "Are you two married?" The two of them nodded, and a smile of warmth and happiness appeared on their faces, as they had obviously thought about their wives. Duan Ling Tian found out from them that their families lived within the Divine Might Marquis estate. After bringing the two home, Duan Ling Tian summoned his manager, Jingru. Jingru asked the servant girls to clean up 2 rooms for them. "Yes, young master." After Jingru left, Duan Ling Tian looked at Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang with a serious expression. "Besides me, you two, and the people that live here, I hope that no one, not even the Divine Might Marquis, finds out about the location of this house. Do you understand?" "Yes, young master." Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang were both army officers and understood the weight of an order. As far as they were concerned, from today onwards, Duan Ling Tian was their general for the next year. "In the future, you two will stay here for 3 days, then return to the Divine Might Marquis estate for a day. Besides that, when I'm at Paladin Academy, you two can return to accompany your families, and then come wait for me outside Paladin Academy at dusk," Duan Ling Tian ordered continuously. "Thank you, young master." Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang had already been prepared to be separated from their families for a year, but never had they expected that Duan Ling Tian would be so reasonable and understanding. Their hearts were filled with gratitude. Before long, Jingru had finished getting the servant girls to clean up the 2 rooms, and after Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang returned to their rooms, Duan Ling Tian arrived at the rear courtyard. "Scoundrel, who are those 2 people you brought back?" Li Fei asked curiously. "They're people I borrowed from Uncle Nya." Duan Ling Tian lightly smiled. Li Fei nodded and didn't inquire any further, as she was clear in her heart that whatever that man did, he had his own reasons. After a while, Duan Ling Tian greeted the 3 women before returning to his room. He withdrew the stack of information he received from the Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan. This was information on the Su clan's businesses within the Imperial City, as well as the information of the people in charge of those businesses. Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but be astounded after he casually skimmed over the information. As expected of one of the 3 great clans of the Imperial City, their clan's businesses are practically spread throughout all of the Imperial City's inner city and outer city. Inns, weapon stores, medicine stores, restaurants, everything that one could wish for is one of their businesses. Besides that, all of these people in charge are actually at the nascent soul stage. Before long, Duan Ling Tian's gaze descended upon one of the pages of information. Su Lai, 3rd level of the nascent soul stage, the nephew of the Su clan's Grand Elder Su Nan. He manages the Su clan's brilliant excitement in. He's fond of women, his greatest addiction is to forcefully take female commoners, and he once killed a family of 7 for a female commoner. As he read up to this point, Duan Ling Tian's gaze focused and a cold light flashed within, and he sneered. "Sure enough, like uncle like nephew. It'll be you." After putting away the stack of information into his spatial ring, Duan Ling Tian walked out of his room and arrived at the front courtyard. Duan Ling Tian summoned Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang before bringing them along and leaving the house. Presently, it was already deep into the night, and there was no one to be seen on the road. With Duan Ling Tian at the lead, the 3 of them quickly arrived outside an inn. "Young master, what are you here for?" Zhang Qian was slightly bewildered. "To kill someone." Duan Ling Tian's gaze focused as a coldness appeared within his eyes. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang shuddered and exhaled breaths of cold air. It was probably only this youth who could speak of killing someone so casually. Although they had killed many people on the battlefield, that was the battlefield, whereas this was the imperial city, and thus the meaning was completely different. This seems to be a business of the Su clan. Zhang Qian's pupils constricted. Let's go. Duan Ling Tian brought along the two of them as he followed along the inn's walls to sneak into the inn's roof. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang obediently followed behind him. After a while of searching, Duan Ling Tian eventually confirmed the location of the target and snuck onto the roof above the target's room. Don't. No. I beg you. Don't. The sound of a woman begging for help sounded from within the room. Duan Ling Tian silently lifted open a piece of tile and clearly saw the scene within the room. A fatty with an extremely large belly was forcing himself onto a woman with slightly good looks and wore plain clothes. The woman obviously was unwilling, and she desperately struggled. Bad luck. Instantly, the fatty lost all patience and he kicked out, directly kicking the woman flying. She collided with the wall and completely lost all signs of life. This scene was something that Duan Ling Tian's group of three had never expected. Even though Duan Ling Tian was furious, he still held his breath and had a gloomy expression. Bastard! However, the two honorable and staunch men who had experienced battlefields were angered to the point that they shouted in low voices and their faces went gloomy. Who? The fatty within the room perceived the sound and his face went pale. The instant he lifted his head to look, he noticed that a tile on the roof above him had been lifted away by someone. You two really are? Duan Ling Tian shook his head as he glanced at Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang helplessly. Looks like the first lesson I'll be giving you is how to control your emotions. All right, now that he's been startled by you two, I'll leave it to you two to deal with him. Duan Ling Tian spread out his hand to express his helplessness when he finished speaking. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang had long since been waiting for Duan Ling Tian to say this, and the moment Duan Ling Tian finished speaking, their legs trembled as they directly stepped through the roof and flashed inside. Duan Ling Tian followed them inside as well. Where do you thieves come from? Do you actually dare to make this young master your target? Didn't you even find out who this young master is? The fatty with an extremely large belly and a bare upper body, or in other words, the Su clan's grand elder's nephew, Su Lai, had a disdainful expression as he looked at Duan Ling Tian's group of three. However, since you've come, then stay. The fat on Su Lai's body trembled as 400 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above him, revealing a strength at the third level of the nascent soul stage before pouncing towards Duan Ling Tian's group of three. Bang, bang, bang. The fatty's palm descended. It vibrated in the air 3 times, transforming into 3 palm prints that flashed towards Duan Ling Tian's group of 3. Humph! Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang had only just moved when 1,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above each of them. 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes dashed out with an imposing manner that pierced through the sky. 2 7th-level nascent soul martial artists? Su Li was dumbfounded. He originally thought that they were only 3 little thieves, but never had he imagined that there would be 2 7th-level nascent soul martial artists. His expression went completely pale. Who the heck are you? Su Li shouted fiercely in a questioning tone. But unfortunately, what he received in return was Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang's attacks that were filled with rage. After easily shattering Su Lai's palm prints, Zhang Qian's and Zhao Gang's attacks were like a tempest as they descended onto Su Lai's body. Instantly, Su Li's fat figure distorted in shape and lost all signs of life. Meanwhile, Duan Ling Tian walked over unhurried and removed the spatial ring on Su Lai's hand before establishing ownership of it. When he saw the large pile of silver bills and silver ingots within the spatial ring, Duan Ling Tian's eyes shone as he muttered to himself, "These silver bills and silver ingots in total are at least 7 or 8 million silver. Not bad. 7 or 8 million silver?" Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang were stunned. Young master, who is this fatty? Zhang Qian fiercely gulped down a mouthful of saliva as a bad premonition arose within his heart. You don't know who he is, but you still rushed over, gave him a beating, and killed him? Duan Ling Tian was slightly speechless. Never mind. If he's dead, then he's dead. My target this time was originally him. This person is called Su Lai. He seems to be the manager of this inn. His other identity is a direct descendant of the Su clan, and he is also the nephew of the Su clan's grand elder, Su Nan. Duan Ling Tian shrugged and finished speaking within a breath. Zhang Qian's and Zhao Gang's expressions completely went pale. The Su clan's direct descendant. Oh my god, even the Divine Might Marquis wouldn't dare to brazenly get rid of a Su clan direct descendant like this, right? What? You two think he didn't deserve death? Duan Ling Tian noticed that both of them had strange expressions on their faces. It seemed like the two of them had charged forward very fiercely earlier, right? Manager, has something happened? Right at this moment, a clamorous noise sounded from outside the room and was moving closer. If you don't want to be noticed, then hurry up and leave. Duan Ling Tian swept Zhao Gang and Zhang Qian with his gaze before being the first to step on the room to gain momentum and jumping up the hole in the room. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang didn't dare ponder any longer. They hurriedly followed Duan Ling Tian. If they were to let the Su clan know that it was them who had killed Su Lai, even the Divine Might Marquis would be unable to protect them. This was a Su clan direct descendant. Large families like the Su clan regarded the face of the clan as most important, and killing their direct descendants was no different than slapping them on the face. After leaving the inn and passing by a few roads, only then did Duan Ling Tian slow down his speed. How was it? Satisfying, right? Duan Ling Tian looked at the two of them and grinned. It's satisfying, yes? However, that was a Su clan direct descendant. If the Su clan finds out that it was us, we'll be finished. Zhang Qian had a bitter smile on his face. He even felt slight regretful for following this youth and leaving the Divine Might Marquis estate. He hadn't even learned any skills but had attracted a terrible disaster like this. Although Zhao Gang didn't say anything, his current expression obviously showed that he had the same thoughts as Zhang Qian. You said if they find out it was us, so isn't it fine if we don't let them find out? Duan Ling Tian was slightly speechless. Didn't this fellow's brain know about thinking from a different angle? Whoosh! Duan Ling Tian raised his hand and withdrew 2 stacks of silver, before passing them over to Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. Tonight's gains aren't bad. This is for you too, 1,000,000 silver each. 1,000,000 silver? Zhao Gang and Zhang Qian both shuddered and were completely dumbstruck. They were 7th-level nascent soul martial artists and had no one above them but the general, but their entire accumulated wealth from the army for nearly half of their lives was only a few 100,000 silver in total. Now they had only just killed a damn fatty that raised indignation within the commoners, and they were able to obtain so much money? They both wondered if they were dreaming. However, the two of them didn't take the silver that Duan Ling Tian passed to them. Young master, we can't take this money. Disregarding the two men's refusal, Duan Ling Tian forcefully pushed the silver into their hands before casually saying, "Don't be fussy. Hurry up and take it. Tonight is only the beginning. In the future, as long as you follow this young master, I guarantee you can earn a huge sum." Tonight is only the beginning? Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang felt like weeping but had no tears, and they both felt like they had gotten mixed up in trouble. Put away the silver and let's go home. If you two don't want to die, then you better not let a 4th person know of what happened tonight, including the Divine Might Marquis and your family members. Duan Ling Tian took a large stride forward and walked towards his own house. Yes, young master. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang put away the silver before following Duan Ling Tian. What a joke. If tonight's matter were to be known by another, they'd be unable to avoid being implicated as well. Even though they had done many deeds of valor in battle, even though they were the trusted followers of the Divine Might Marquis, the Su clan wouldn't care about all that. At that time, even the Divine Might Marquis might not be able to protect them. When Duan Ling Tian had only just returned to his house with Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, and they had all returned to their rooms to sleep, the Su clan was completely filled with loud sounds of discussion. The Su clan had many businesses under them, and they were even involved in inns. However, the brilliant excitement in under the Su clan had encountered disaster tonight. The manager of the Brilliant Excitement Inn, In other words, the Su clan member that was in charge of the inn and was Grand Elder Su Nan's nephew, Su Lai, was killed in his own room. Slap. In the Su clan audience hall, Patriarch Su Boya had a face full of rage as his palm descended, and the armrest of the new seat that had just been changed was once again shattered by him, causing the hearts of the Su clan elders that were present to tremble. Looked like after today, the Patriarch would need another new seat. Who can tell me what exactly happened? Subuya had a gloomy expression and was practically roaring. The bearing that a patriarch of a clan was supposed to have was all gone, and all that remained was a frenzied rage. The Su clan had really been going through a troubled period lately. First, the most talented genius among the younger generation direct descendants, Su Tong, was crippled. Then it was the loss of the recommendation quota to enter Paladin Academy, and now the Su clan's direct descendant disciple was actually so brazenly killed by someone. Patriarch, that nephew of mine died so tragically. We must find out who's the assailant and make him pay for blood with blood. Grand Elder Su Nan, who sat below Su Boya, had a face full of lament and resentment and was enraged to the extreme. One trouble had not even subsided and another had already arose. If it was before, there would surely be many people who would second what the Sunan said. But now, Grand Elder, according to my knowledge, Su Lai frequently did some deeds like forcefully taking female commoners. When he was killed tonight, his room contained a woman that was killed by him for not obeying him. Could it be that he had committed too many bad deeds and encountered the revenge of a righteous expert? The old man that sat opposite of Su Nan spoke indifferently. His tone was calm, but mixed within was a trace of pleasure at Su Nan's misfortune. I think what Second Elder said is reasonable. Grand Elder, you should have long since known of the despicable actions of that nephew of yours. Why didn't you try to advise him? Exactly. If Grand Elder had been able to provide proper guidance, that Su Lai would have surely restrained himself and wouldn't have lost his life over this. The remaining Su clan elders, one after the other, seconded what Second Elder had said. Some of the Su clan elders even had sarcastic tones as they spoke. Since they found out that Grand Elder Su Nan's decision caused the Su clan to lose 2 recommendation slots to Paladin Academy, extreme displeasure arose within their hearts. The recommendation quota that was already fought for amongst the Su clan higher-ups was now even more difficult to obtain. And all of this was because of Grand Elder Su Nan. You all. Su Nan's face was extremely unsightly. He naturally knew why he would become the common target for criticism. Presently, all the statements these elders made were reasonable, causing him to not know how to refute them for a moment. Patriarch, even if that nephew of mine had any more fault, he's still a direct descendant of our Su clan. Could it be that we're going to let him die for nothing? Su Nan looked at Su Boya with a face full of fury. Humph. Su Boya grunted coldly. Killing a direct descendant of my Su clan is no different than slapping the face of my Su clan. Pass down my orders. Investigate the identity of the assailant. If someone is able to provide a clue, reward them with 1,000,000 silver. Reward with 1,000,000 silver? At dawn the next day, Duan Ling Tian had only just entered the classroom when he heard some of the students in his class discussing what happened in the Su clan last night. The Su clan is really stingy. The life of a direct descendant disciple is only worth 1,000,000 silver in their eyes. Duan Ling Tian had a strange expression, but he felt extremely happy in his heart. Before long, a trace of ice coldness appeared within Duan Ling Tian's eyes. Su Nan, last night's incident is only just the beginning. Since you want to play, then I'll accompany your Su clan and nicely play. Su Nan, the Su clan's Grand Elder, and the culprit that forced Su Li to leave. In the afternoon that day, Duan Ling Tian sat cross-legged on the large tree at the side of the martial arts practice grounds and cultivated as usual. Bang! The bottleneck that he originally thought would still require some time to break through was instantly broken through under Duan Ling Tian's concentrated and devoted cultivating. And his cultivation officially stepped into the 6th level of the core formation stage. I broke through? Duan Ling Tian opened his eyes and was slightly surprised for a brief moment. How could it be so fast? Duan Ling Tian, however, didn't know that the cultivation of the 9 Dragons War sovereign technique walked upon the path of being domineering and following the heart. This time, because of Su Li's departure, an extremely large change occurred in Duanling Tian's mentality, and he seemed to have once again become that iron-blooded weapons specialist from his previous lifetime that stopped at nothing. As long as someone bullied his friends, brothers, or family, he would surely return it tenfold, hundredfold, even thousandfold and 10,000-fold. This sort of mentality happened to fully conform with the 9 Dragons War sovereign technique's requirement of being domineering and following the heart. It allowed Duanling Tian's cultivation to advance at a tremendous pace and at full speed, directly breaking through the 5th-level core formation stage bottleneck and stepping into the 6th level of the core formation stage in one go. As long as Duanling Tian continued to maintain this mentality, the cultivation speed of his 9 Dragons War sovereign technique in the future would surely be able to maintain this tremendous pace at which it advances. The 9 Dragons War sovereign technique was a cultivation method that was on par with the supreme cultivation method 3 Lives Rebirth technique that the Rebirth Martial Emperor cultivated, after all, and surpassed top cultivation methods at the same level as the Frost God Sword technique, the Demonic Beauty Divine technique, and the Galactic Star technique. After breaking through to the 6th level of the core formation stage, Duanling Tian was extremely delighted. After I get home tonight, I'll refine a dragon blood pill and directly let my fleshly body complete its tempering with origin energy. After that, I can continue to charge towards the 7th level of the core formation stage. Duanling Tian was slightly excited in his heart. Once he completed the tempering of the fleshly body for the 6th level of the core formation stage, he would be capable of exerting the strength of 16 ancient mammoths even without the use of his spirit weapon, the Violet Myrtle Flexible Sword. As a Grade 8 spirit weapon, the Violet Myrtle Flexible Sword was capable of increasing his strength by 20%. At that time, if he were to use the Violet Myrtle Flexible Sword, he would be capable of exerting the strength of 19 ancient mammoths. An ordinary martial artist at the 9th level of the core formation stage would only possess the strength of 12 ancient mammoths and would be unable to exert the strength of 19 ancient mammoths unless the martial artist had a Grade 4 spirit weapon to rely on. However, not to mention the Crimson Sky Kingdom, even the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, who had sects sprout up like forests and the number of experts within were like the clouds in the sky, might not have a Grade 4 spirit weapon. It could be said that after tonight, even if it was throughout the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom and even throughout the entire Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, Duanling Tian could still be called invincible under the Origin Core stage. At dusk, after Duanling Tian left Paladin Academy, his brows slightly raised. Interesting. A cold smile that was difficult to notice appeared on the corners of Duanling Tian's mouth. He noticed that among the people that were hidden in the shadows and focused on him, besides Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, who were under him, there were still 3 more people. Heh, are all the people in this world so unprofessional when they resort to tracking someone? Duanling Tian shrugged and walked into an alley in the distance with extreme familiarity. He had only just entered the alley for a short moment when 3 figures seemed to transform into 3 gusts of wind as they flashed straight towards Duanling Tian, and they divided themselves into 3 corners as they surrounded Duanling Tian. They were 3 middle-aged men who had frosty expressions that contained no emotions whatsoever, and their icy cold eyes stared fixedly at Duanling Tian as if they were looking at a dead man. Could it be that your liege thinks that just the 3 of you are enough to take my life? A sneer appeared on the corners of Duanling Tian's mouth, as he vaguely perceived that the cultivation levels of these 3 people were at the 1st level of the nascent soul stage to the 3rd level of the nascent soul stage. They were even inferior to that fatty Su Li from the brilliant excitement in last night. Target confirmed, kill? One of the middle-aged men spoke with an incomparably icy cold voice, and as soon as he finished speaking, his entire body moved and he pounced towards Duanling Tian. The other 2 middle-aged men followed suit. 300 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above the middle-aged man that spoke. He was obviously a 2nd-level nascent soul martial artist. The other 2 people were both at the 1st level of the nascent soul stage. Faced with the joint attack of the 3 middle-aged men, Duanling Tian didn't have any intention of dodging, even to the extent that he didn't allow the two little pythons beneath his sleeve to attack. At practically the same instant that the three men pounced towards Duanling Tian. Whoosh! Whoosh! Two figures whose speeds were numerous times faster than the three men seemed to transform into two bolts of lightning as they instantly flashed into the battle. They stood beside Duanling Tian and protected him. Above the two men, there were each 1,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes that dashed out. Seventh level of the nascent soul stage. The three middle-aged men's expressions went grim. Bad intel, retreat. The body of the second-level nascent soul martial artist trembled in the air. His legs stepped onto the ground, desiring to obtain the momentum to flee. The other two men hurriedly stopped their attacks as well and divided split into three directions as they fled. Humph! A cold grunt accompanied by a figure that moved like a bolt of lightning instantly passed the second-level nascent soul martial artist. The other figure that moved like a bolt of lightning caught up to the other two first-level nascent soul martial artists as well. Leave them alone. Duanling Tian's gaze slightly focused as he ordered. He wanted to know who exactly sent these three people were. No matter who it was that sent them, he would make that person pay the price. After a short moment, Zhang Qian's palm slapped downwards to heavily injure that second-level nascent soul martial artist, and like an eagle that caught a chick, Zhang Qian carried him over to Duanling Tian. On the other side, Zhao Gang killed one of the first-level nascent soul stage martial artists before capturing the other. As long as you tell me who sent you, I can let you live. Duanling Tian slowly walked out. His gaze descended upon the two middle-aged men with ghastly pale expressions as he spoke with a cold and indifferent voice that seemed to come from the depths of hell. Suddenly, Duanling Tian's face went grim. The scene that would only appear within wuxia novels from his previous life appeared before his eyes. The two middle-aged men cracked their teeth. They had obviously bitten some sort of poisonous medicine into pieces before directly dying from poisoning. After seeing the two middle-aged men's faces turn black, losing vitality from the poison, and dying from suicide, Zhao Gang and Zhang Qian glanced at each other before their faces went grim. Death soldiers. Death soldiers? What death soldiers? Duanling Tian's brows frowned. He didn't understand why Zhao Gang and Zhang Qian would have such a huge reaction. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang glanced at Duanling Tian and felt their scalps go numb. Who the heck did this young master offend? Zhang Qian took a deep breath and slowly explained, Young master, the so-called death soldiers are a group of pawns that are fearless of death and were trained by people who have great plans and schemes. These death soldiers are only loyal to their liege and only serve one liege with their lives. As long as their liege wishes it, they are willing to give up everything, including their lives, for their liege. During the process of carrying out a mission, once the mission fails, these death soldiers would rather die than spit out the identity of their liege. After Zhang Qian finished speaking, he and Zhao Gang looked at Duanling Tian together. They were both curious as to how this young master offended the person behind these death soldiers. So these are death soldiers? Duanling Tian nodded, and a trace of coldness arose within his heart. For the sake of completing the mission, they were fearless of death. These people were virtually machines of slaughter that were deprived of any human feelings. Young master, have you offended someone? Zhao Gang asked in a slightly hesitant manner. Duanling Tian's brows raised as he directly said, I've offended many people. Don't you both know of the Su clan? Young master, logically speaking, it's impossible that these death soldiers are people from the Su clan. Zhang Qian shook his head. According to my knowledge, these death soldiers usually come from the army. Only people who possess high statuses would secretly gather these people and form a death corps under their command. At the critical juncture, these death corps would be able to transform into sharp blades that directly enter the chests of their enemies. Then who do you think these death soldiers most probably belong to? Duanling Tian frowned lightly as he asked. Young master, within the imperial city, these death soldiers are more commonly seen under the command of the various princes of the imperial family. As long as they are princes who have the intention to compete for the seat of the emperor, then basically all of them without exception have trained a group of death soldiers under their command, Zhao Gang said, with a serious expression. and his eyes couldn't help but emit a trace of suspicion within his eyes. Could it be that the young master had a grudge with someone that has a lofty status? Prince? Duan Ling Tian's eyes focused and a cold light flashed within. He didn't have to ponder before being able to guess that the 3 death soldiers that had just appeared to assassinate him were either the 3rd prince's people or the 5th prince's people. 3rd prince, 5th prince. No matter who did this, I hope you two don't go too far. Otherwise, not to mention that the seat of the emperor will not be fated for you two. Even your lives will be difficult to maintain. Duan Ling Tian's face sank as killing intent arose within his heart. Let's go home. Duan Ling Tian called Zhao Gang and Zhang Qian before directly walking towards his house. On the way, Duan Ling Tian didn't forget to teach a lesson to the two of them. When the two of you secretly follow me in the future, can you be a little bit more professional? I'd only just walked out of Paladin Academy, and I'd noticed the tracks of you too. As Duan Ling Tian taught them a lesson, he also slowly imbued the practical knowledge of tracking he learnt from his previous life as a weapons specialist into the two of them. When had Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang ever heard of such fresh things? They listened so well that they seemed like they were infatuated and intoxicated with what Duan Ling Tian taught them. Never had they imagined that merely tracking would actually have so much to pay attention to. The gazes with which the two of them looked at Duan Ling Tian was even more respectful, and at the same time, they couldn't help but be curious inwardly. Where the heck did this youth actually learn all these things? You two, take a rest and prepare. This young master will take you two out to conduct a huge business deal tonight, Duan Ling Tian said to Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang after they returned home. He then walked into the main building by himself and returned to his room. Huge business deal? Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang glanced at each other and both saw bitter smiles on each other's faces. They naturally knew what this huge business deal the young master spoke of was. However, did they have any room to choose now? Precisely as the saying goes, make one wrong move and every move after that will be wrong. The two of them helplessly shook their heads before obediently returning to their rooms to rest. As for Duan Ling Tian, after he returned, he didn't even have the time to greet the 3 beauties within his house before directly returning to his room. Whoosh! He withdrew the cauldron and subsequently started refining the dragon blood pill. After the dragon blood pill was completed, Duan Ling Tian consumed it. Instantly, his fleshly body completed the tempering for the 6th level of the nascent soul stage and gained an extra strength of 1 ancient mammoth. This would also mean that his next step would be to directly charge towards the 7th level of the core formation stage. I've finally nearly caught up to those 2 girls. A smile appeared on Duan Ling Tian's face. Since they had settled down in the Imperial City's inner city, no matter whether it was Ku'er or Li Fei, they both spent over 10 hours a day cultivating under the assistance of an inexhaustible supply of high-purity origin-increasing pills. Presently, the 2 girls had already broken through to the 7th level of the core formation stage in succession. But Duan Ling Tian was confident that with his current cultivation speed, it wouldn't be long from now before he'd catch up to the 2 girls' footsteps. Young master, it's time for food. A voice that was pleasing to the ear sounded from outside. Duan Ling Tian opened the door and saw Ku'er there. Duan Ling Tian was in a slight trance when he saw the slim and graceful young girl. The current Ku'er wasn't the little girl from before. She had already matured. Looking at Ku'er's beautiful face that was as white as jade, and the pair of plump buds before her chest, Duan Ling Tian's lower regions went hot as evil intentions arose within his heart. Maybe he should find a time to eat up this girl Ku'er. Young master, I'm leaving first. You hurry up and come eat as well. Ku'er had noticed Duan Ling Tian's gaze, and her heartbeat increased in speed. Her face blushed as she quickly walked out. This little girl is still shy. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and chased after her. After finishing their meal, Duan Ling Tian returned to his room and withdrew the information of the various businesses under the Su clan and the people in charge of those businesses before starting to look through it. In the end, he locked in a target. Su Yong, 6th level nascent soul martial artist, cousin of the Su clan's grand elder, Su Nan, and manages the Su clan's largest medicine store within the Imperial City, Calm Cloud's Pavilion. He has 2 children that commit all sorts of atrocities, and every time it was Su Yong who cleaned up after their mess by ruthlessly annihilating any threats. After he finished looking through Su Yong's information, Duanling Tian decided on him. The main reason why he chose Su Yong was naturally because of his relationship with Su Nan. The second reason was due to his despicable actions. Besides having two ignorant and incompetent children that were profligate sons, he himself was stained with despicable deeds. Like the old saying, like father, like son. In this world where the strong are revered, it's like this. There is absolutely no law to be spoken of, and the fist is the absolute principle. Just like this Su Yong. It can be said that everyone within the imperial city knows of the actions of Su Yong and his two sons. However, even the imperial family that controls the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom pretends that they don't notice for the sake of the Su clan's face, and thus don't punish Su Yong and his sons. Although Duanling Tian didn't plan on being some sort of savior, since he had decided to give the Su clan a taste of his strength, he naturally wouldn't show mercy. Blame yourself for being misfortunate. If it wasn't for your Su clan going overboard, I wouldn't have targeted you. Duanling Tian finished looking through the other information of Su Yong before leaving his room. Deep into the night, when it was so dark that one was unable to see their own hand in front of them. At the northern area of the imperial city's inner city was a residential area, and one of the courtyard houses amongst them was extremely spacious. Within the courtyard house, the lights were out, as the person inside had obviously fallen asleep. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Three figures were like owls as they passed the courtyard house's enclosing wall before sneaking into the courtyard house. Let's go. Under the shine of moonlight, the figure of the person in the lead appeared, and it was a youth wearing black clothes and had his face covered. It was precisely Duanling Tian. His target tonight was the Su clan's Su Yong. This Su Yong didn't stay within the Su clan estate. Instead, he bought a courtyard house outside of the Su clan estate by himself and kept a few mistresses. He passed his days extremely comfortably. Under Duanling Tian's lead, Zhao Gang and Zhang Qian, who similarly wore black clothes and covered their faces, silently followed behind him. Through the moonlight, the helplessness within their eyes could be seen. When had they ever been so sneaky? Young master, from what I know, that Su Yong is only at the 6th level of the nascent soul stage. Can't we be straightforward and directly charge in to kill him? Zhang Qian asked. Although Zhao Gang didn't speak, he still nodded in deep agreement. The corners of Duanling Tian's mouth twitched. Why did he feel that these two fellows were even more savage than him? Straightforward? Duanling Tian sneered in a low voice. If we directly charge in, then what would be the difference of having me here? Don't forget what your general asked you to follow me for. Zhao Gang and Zhang Qian came to a sudden understanding. So the young master was training them. Unless something happens, kill Su Yong only. Duanling Tian brought Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang to enter the main building and arrived outside the innermost master bedroom. Duanling Tian pushed out his palm and shook open the door's lock. Bang! The room door was pushed open by Duanling Tian. Who? Instantly, an explosive shout sounded from within the room, and subsequently a light was lit within the room. The entire room was completely illuminated. The middle-aged man that was originally completely naked shrouded himself with a robe at the front of the bed before jumping down from the bed and opening his pair of fierce triangular eyes widely to stare fixedly at Duanling Tian's group of three, who wore black clothes and had their faces covered. He said, with a gloomy expression, "Who are you all?" "Ah." A young girl that looked to be around the age of 20 cowered at the corner of the bed in fear. She pulled over the sheets to cover her buck-naked body. "Kill him." Duanling Tian's eyes focused as he shouted in a low voice with his command. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang moved to directly flash towards the middle-aged man. They had an imposing manner that pierced through the sky. 1,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above each of them. 2 7th-level nascent soul martial artists. The middle-aged man's, or in other words, Su Yong's, face went deathly pale, as he realized that these people didn't come with good intentions. His gaze quickly descended upon the nearby window, and his body moved before breaking the window with a loud crash and going out. Above him, 800 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang's pupils constricted as they pursued. No, don't kill me. When she saw Duanling Tian approaching, the expression of the young girl who cowered at the corner of the bed went pale, and her eyes emitted terror. Meanwhile, Duanling Tian heard a wave of clamorous noise sounding from outside the front courtyard. He knew that the events here had alarmed the other people. Under the girl's frightened gaze, Duanling Tian's brows knitted before he raised his hand and knocked the girl out. Only then did he chase out of the window. In any case, his face was currently covered, and thus he wasn't worried about being recognized. Outside the window was the rear courtyard of this courtyard house, and currently that Su Yong was leaning against the rear courtyard's wall, unmoving and without a trace of life. Obviously, he didn't succeed in his escape. Think about it. How could a 6th-level nascent soul martial artist succeed in fleeing under the joint chase of 2 7th-level nascent soul martial artists? Meanwhile, Zhang Qian removed Su Yong's spatial ring and respectfully passed it into Duanling Tian's hand. Young master, let's go. When Duanling Tian's group of 3 arrived before the wall, they exerted force with their legs and their origin energy rose explosively. Above their heads, 10+ ancient mammoth silhouettes flashed. They directly jumped over the enclosing wall and arrived outside the courtyard house. When Duanling Tian had only just left with Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, he could vaguely hear a sorrowful cry echo out from within the rear courtyard. Master! On the way, Duanling Tian established ownership over the spatial ring, and the wealth within caused his eyes to shine. 30+ million silver. It was just as he'd expected. This Su Yong had worked most of his life, and his accumulated wealth would far surpass that fatty, Su Lai's, from last night. In fact, Su Lai could be considered a nephew of Su Yong. This pair of uncle and nephew in total had gifted him nearly 40 million silver. Take it. Duanling Tian once again withdrew 2 million silver and divided it among Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang. The two of them didn't refuse this time and directly put it away. As far as they were concerned, now that they were following and did things for this audacious young master, they practically had a slim chance of survival. If one day they were to accidentally fail, then they could at least leave this wealth to their wives. With the Divine Might Marquis present, they didn't have to worry about their wives being implicated. It could be said that they were already prepared for the worst. After all, what they were doing now was like walking on a steel wire atop a cliff, and they would fall down at the slightest accident, resulting in their bodies being smashed into pieces. The Su clan weren't easy to deal with. If Duanling Tian knew the thoughts of Zhao Gang and Zhang Qian, he would surely be speechless for a while. He had done similar things countless times in his previous life, and besides the time he was sold out by someone, when did he ever fail? When they returned to the house, Duanling Tian, whose mood was already elated, greeted another unexpected reason for being happy. Xiong Quan had actually spent all the 50 million silver he was given last time, and had once again gathered the materials that were sufficient to inscribe over 10 bone corrosion inscriptions. After today, the Su clan will surely be vigilant. I'll rest for a few days and help Mom and those 2 girls by inscribing some bone corrosion inscriptions for the next few nights. Duanling Tian thought inwardly and made a plan. To him, there was nothing more important than the safety of his family. Duanling Tian, whose mood was elated, sneakily entered Li Fei's room. Li Fei wasn't asleep yet. She was sitting cross-legged on the soft bed as she cultivated. Her eyes opened the moment she heard movement, and she saw Duanling Tian with a glance. She didn't even have the time to react when she was pushed down onto the bed by Duanling Tian. Little Fei, your husband has come. Before long, accompanied by Duanling Tian's heavy breathing, the soft bed started swaying, writing down an extravagant score of music. Until deep into the night, only then did the movement of the two cease, and the sound of panting suffused within the entire room. Right at this time, Duanling Tian hugged little Fei, whose face was blushing, and fell asleep in satisfaction. The Su clan higher-ups once again gathered within the audience hall that very night. Killing 2 of my Su clan's direct descendants within 2 nights in succession. Looks like someone is intentionally making it difficult for our Su clan. Patriarch Su Bo Ya's palm descended once again in rage, and the armrest of the new seat that had only been changed today was once again shattered. As the Grand Elder who sat below the patriarch, Su Nan had an extremely unsightly expression as well. Last night, his nephew had died. Tonight, his cousin had died. He suddenly felt that the target of everything seemed to intentionally or unintentionally be him. Not only did Su Nan think in this way, even the other Su clan elders had similar thoughts. Grand Elder, have you offended someone? Yeah, Grand Elder, if you've offended someone, you can speak up, and with this clue, we'll be able to investigate the assailant's identity. Grand Elder, could it be that you have some difficulty? Grand Elder, I hope you can put the interest of the entire Su clan above everything else. One by one, the Su clan elders pointed the spearhead at Su Nan. The gaze of Patriarch Su Boya couldn't help but descend onto Su Nan, as currently even he was suspicious. Patriarch, I, Su Nan, can swear that I absolutely have not offended anyone lately. If you really want to talk about conflict, then it should only be that Su Li and Duan Ling Tian. However, it would be absolutely impossible for the two of them to have the ability to kill Su Lai and Su Yong. Being misunderstood by so many people caused Su Nan's face to flush from anger, and within his heart, he hated that assailant to the bones. Su Li? Many of the Su clan elders present knew of who Su Li was, and they all asked, "What does this have to do with Su Li?" Su Nan took a deep breath and spoke of the dispute between him and Su Li, including the matter of Su Li having left Paladin Academy. When he first found out about this, he was extremely surprised as well. Never had he expected that for the sake of his friend, Duan Ling Tian, and for the sake of taking account of his parents' safety, Su Li would actually be willing to give up his future. As far as he was concerned, Su Li's choice was truly hopelessly stupid. Grand Elder, you're really capable, not even letting a child go. A Su clan elder who once had a good relationship with Su Li's father couldn't help but sneer and glance at Su Nan in disdain. As far as he was concerned, as a dignified Su clan elder, such actions were extremely infuriating. It's impossible for the culprit to be Su Li. As for that Duan Ling Tian, although he's the son of Duan Rufeng, he hasn't returned to the Duan clan, and thus it's impossible for him to have such a capability. Grand Elder, have you left something out? Su Boya pondered for a moment before looking at Su Nan with a burning gaze. Absolutely not. Su Nan shook his head with a certain expression. Su Boya frowned and pondered for a moment before speaking. The one thing in common with both Su Lai's and Su Yong's murders was that after they were killed, their spatial rings vanished as well. Could it be that the person's objective was to seek wealth? If it's to seek wealth, then it can be explained, no matter was it. Both Su Lai and Su Yong were charge of a business under our Su clan. A Su clan elder said, "Pass down my command. Ask the people in charge of the various businesses to stay within the Su clan estate for the near future. I want to see if that person will dare to charge into my Su clan estate." Su Boya nodded before giving this order right away, and his eyes flickered with a cold and stern brilliance as he did so. In merely 2 days, 2 direct descendants of the Su clan had died. He, who was the Su clan's patriarch, lost face as well and felt great humiliation. At dawn the next day, the entire imperial city was bustling, and the news of the Su clan members dying in succession within 2 nights spread everywhere. Moreover, the members who died were direct descendant disciples of the Su clan. That Su clan couldn't have offended someone, right? Who knows? However, the 2 who died weren't good people. Yeah, it's better if more people like them were to die. Sure. Softer. Are you courting death? If the members of the Su clan hear you, you can forget about living. No matter whether it was the imperial city outer city or the inner city, everywhere was filled with similar discussions. Your Highness, the 3 death soldiers we sent out yesterday haven't returned for an entire night. I'm afraid they're probably dead. Within a quiet and secluded pergola, the white-browed old man respectfully reported to the young man in luxurious clothes who sat within and savored fragrant tea. 3 nascent soul martial artists weren't able to take that Duan Ling Tian's life? The young man in luxurious clothes, or in other words, the 5th prince's, face slightly sank. Looks like the Duan clan is really dutiful and is looking after this direct descendant disciple that rebelled against them. Your Highness, what you mean is that the Duan clan's members are protecting him? The white-browed old man was startled. The fifth prince snorted coldly as he asked, "Besides this, what other thing do you think he's able to rely upon?" The white-browed old man went silent and only opened his mouth after a while. Your Highness, then should we still put down this matter for the time being? I heard that 2 direct descendants of the Su clan died in succession within 2 nights. Send people to investigate, and if you're able to investigate any clues, give it to the Su clan as a favor. Once it's done, at the time of the struggle for the seat of the emperor, when I want the Su clan to help me, I think that the Su clan's patriarch, Su Boya, won't refuse. The fifth prince's eyes flashed with a light of wisdom. Yes, the white-browed old man replied before leaving. Duan Ling Tian, you repeatedly injured my cousin. Even if you have the members of the Duan clan protecting you in secret, you won't be able to prance around for long. A trace of a cold light flashed within the fifth prince's eyes. The ghastly shadow assassin organization could be said to be everywhere within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Even in the Imperial City, there was a ghastly shadow point of operations. Inner City, in a remote corner. Very few people knew that the point of operations of the ghastly shadow within the Imperial City was precisely here. Deep into the night, a middle-aged man with ordinary appearance sneakily looked at his surroundings before walking into the ghastly shadow's point of operations. He entered the lobby and arrived before the counter. Target. Behind the counter, a stiff-faced young man spoke with a voice that emitted a bone-piercing ice coldness. It caused the middle-aged man to feel a chill run down his spine as he said, in panic, Duan Ling Tian, 9th level of the core formation stage, grade 1 student of Paladin Academy. Paladin Academy? The young man's voice seemed to have a sense of scruples. He's a student that's put up outside the academy and doesn't live within Paladin Academy, the middle-aged man said. The way he spoke was as if he was reading a textbook. He had obviously been ordered by someone to put up this assignment. Deposit 200,000 silver. Confirmation in 3 days, the young man said, in a cold and indifferent voice. The middle-aged man withdrew a stack of silver from his pocket in a flurry and left in a flustered manner after he put down the silver.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.